The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Good morning and thank you for joining us here at FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow. The November 5th state election is soon upon us, and we're taking an opportunity to speak to as many of the local candidates especially as possible. So when you go to the polls on November 5th, you'll make informed decisions. In Fall River, there are not actually a lot of local races that Fall River voters will be seeing, but one of them actually has 5 candidates. It's the race for the 8th Bristol District state representative seat. Here in Fall River, there's only 3 precincts that are part of the 8th District. They are precincts 1A, 6A, and 6B. And one of the 5 candidates is joining me today. He is the Democrat running in the race, Steven Ouellette. Steven, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You know, a lot of people in Fall River may not know who you are, so let me just ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm currently a Westport selectman. I'm in my 8th term. I've been at this for over 20 years. I have a wife, Kim, I've been married to for 38 years, and a daughter that works for DCF. And I have recently had a grandchild, so I've got a 3-month-old grandchild. But the reason I'm going for this position is because I have the time now. My daughter's grown up. I'm aware of how the politics in this area work. I've got a lot of jobs done, if you will, and I'd like to keep doing that. I was on the police department as a reserve for 19 years before I was a selectman. Call firefighter before that. I've been serving the public since I was old enough to do so. Since I was a Cub Scout. So I've been working with the public all my life. It's something I enjoy. I enjoy getting things done and working with them.
So let me ask you, what are some of the, maybe top issues? We'll get into some specifics, but what are some of the top issues you feel are important that you want to address? Well,
statewide right now, of course, the migrant problem with our rents going through the roof, the economy. While most of that's national stuff, the migrants issue is a problem here when the government calls a state of emergency. So our people can't afford to live here. That's a concern. The other side of it is we have to balance it. If rents are too low, we're going to have our people getting pushed out for people from other counties. So it's a delicate balance. But I think housing is one of the top things we've got to work on. People need to be able to stay here. If you're working, you should be able to live in the area you're working on. So that's one of the top issues. My top things that I work on is public safety, transportation, of course schools, because I work for a school system. So those are the top things off the top of my head. I don't know if you want me to elaborate.
No, we can elaborate on some of the issues. But so let me ask you, this district, the 8th Bristol District, encompasses parts of 2 cities, New Bedford and Fall River,
yeah,
and as well as, of course, the entire town of Westport,
yep,
part of Freetown, and part of Acushnet. That's a very diverse district. How do you try to balance the needs of 2 gateway cities with those of towns that are rural and suburban?
Yeah, I mean, stuff we're dealing with now, like trying to get water and sewer in the town of Westport, is tough. You need zoning changes. People do not want to build out. We're working on water now because there was a grant. The taxpayers did not want to pay for it, but we got grants to pay for it. So nothing's coming out of their pocket. But it's just unique. Like New Bedford at a meeting, they want sidewalks. Westport doesn't want sidewalks. They fought not to have sidewalks. So yeah, you've got diversity there. But the good part is, instead of everybody wanting sidewalks and you got to spread the funds out, okay, New Bedford wants sidewalks, Fall River wants their sidewalks done. We can concentrate on that. And Westport wants more open space. Let's work on open space. So I think it's a challenge, but I think it's a good challenge because of the diversity. My grandparents came from Fall River. I'm 4th generation in Westport. My father's parents are from Westport, but my grandfather and grandmother met in the mill in Fall River. So I was in Fall River quite a bit when I was a kid growing up. My grandmother's brothers and sisters, some were on Brayton Avenue, some were on Stafford Road. We were down the Flint a lot. So, I know the area. I also worked a little bit in New Bedford. So the whole area I think is great. I've been here my whole life. So.
Yeah. Well, let me talk about a couple of issues. Let's talk first in terms of state finances. The state received an influx, as the cities and towns did with ARPA money, and that money's now ending.
Yeah.
And even during that time, state revenues were on the rise for the past few years. Yeah. Now they've kind of leveled off, down a little bit. I think thus far they're ahead of last year's projections, but still below this, the budget. What's your philosophy in terms of finances and spending statewide?
Well, I think as soon as you get in the door, some people think you need 3 points to run on. My point is, I want at least the funds that we have now and expand it. I'm concerned with them cutting the funds, and especially, like I say, when we already have housing issues and whatnot. So thankfully, Mike Rodrigues is endorsing me. He's on Ways and Means. I'm sure that controls the state budget. So this area is well served in that aspect. Now we got to fight to get it for our areas. So to answer your question in a nutshell, we're going to work hard. And again, I'm glad Michael serves this area because we tend to get the funding. I'm not going to say that we need, but we tend to get a good amount of funding to help the communities.
Yeah. You mentioned that you have been employed for a number of years in education, working for a couple of local school districts.
Yes.
Education, has been handled differently in the past few years, mainly through the Student Opportunity Act, has benefited cities like New Bedford and Fall River.
Right.
I don't know the situation in Westport. I'll let you address that. But again, is that something that may be difficult to balance when you've got some of the smaller towns saying, hey, boy, New Bedford, Fall River, they're getting a lot of money. How about our fair share?
Yeah, I think that's something we definitely got to sit down with the superintendents, which the superintendents in this area are great. I mean, I work directly with Auburn and Westport, and of course, Dr. Bailey and Acushnet. So that's the good part. I've already got a foot in the door. I can get together with them, what's working, what's not working. But I agree, the Student Act is got a little bit of a complex formula. I understand the gist of it is to get the inner city youth and I don't want to say problem areas, but latchkey kids, let's get them educated and move on. So we do have to work harder and show the case of why we need more funding and how we can get it. But again, schools are autonomous to town, as you know. So sometimes it's tough to get the selectmen and the school committee to agree, and we got to get together on that.
Yeah. Let me ask you, you mentioned public safety. Cities and towns across the Commonwealth and across the country are having a difficult time filling vacancies. Here in Fall River,
yep.
It's funny, for the longest time, the chief of Fall River would say, regardless of who he or she was, that in the early days we had a lot of potential recruits but no money. Now they've got money but no recruits. Yep. How do you try to approach that on a statewide level? And what are you seeing in Westport, I guess?
Well, in Westport, to be honest with you, we just got 2 Fall River officers to go to the Westport. I was a reserve police officer. I want to stress I was not a full-time police officer, part-time. I was a police officer for 19 years. Back then, you had your gun and you had your flashlight, and that was about it. Now you've got your gun, your taser, it looks like a Batman belt. You're wearing a camera, you got a bulky vest. It's a hard job. You've got to deal with, right now, in society in general, you have a lot more aggressive people, even the kids. You've got to be an expert driver. You've got to be part psychologist. You got to be a ninja. There's so many aspects to the job. I understand why there's an issue. Public safety is extremely high on my list. I know as a Democrat, some people think everybody wants to defund it, or at least my party does. I do not. I strongly support it. But yeah, we need incentives, and there's certain things that I'd love to see that maybe we can't do. Maybe you get a tax break if you're a public safety employee or EMS. Don't forget, we got the same problem with fire too. So I'm open to any suggestions on that and work hard to do it because public safety is very high. Again, people are concerned now, more guns on the streets. We've got ATVs running loose with no plates on them, and there's a number of issues that need the support. You need a chief and a city council that backs it. And I've got to put a plug in for the mayor. The mayor works very hard for this city. He's staying neutral on this race. Every time I call him on an issue or he's contacted me on an issue, he wants what's best for Fall River. And I can tell you honestly, because right now we're working on a water bill with the city of Fall River from Westport, and the mayor wants his money. Also, Paul Hart tends to do a lot of works. So again, this is relationships that I'm glad people are working. That's one of the reasons why I want to run. People are working, trying to help the cities, and I'm glad it's out there and that we can move forward.
Cost of living has been an issue again across the country since the pandemic. With inflation being so high, housing. You mentioned it before in your opening about how housing has been impacted. Of course, there was a bill that was just passed. I believe over $5 billion that can help address this issue. Is there anything more that the legislature can do in this aspect?
On the housing issue?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Everybody was psyched that the train was coming down here, and now the train's created kind of an issue. Not only just the migrant problem with eating up a lot of housing. Now you've got the train that adds value to this area. And I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't seen anybody do it yet, but I think we got to talk to realtors and maybe come up with a way where blighted property. If somebody wants to invest in it, a person, that we can do a deal with them. Say you got a first-time homeowner that may have some construction experience. Maybe work a deal with banks where they got a good shot at it, and with the realtors that, hey, maybe sponsor a couple of houses like Habitat for Humanity does. Let's get the city built up. There used to be tremendous pride in this city, and unfortunately it's been slapped around with everything that's getting thrown at them, and people that might not care about the neighborhoods as the past. This is a very clean, proud city in the past, and I know it aggravates some people. I'd love to see it like that, and I know there's a social media gentleman that's working hard to do that. So I'm glad there's a push out there to get it done. I don't think there's an easy fix, not with people, capitalism, if you will, when people own a house and they want to pay for their house and the repairs aren't getting any cheaper. But I'm open to any ideas, and it, like I said in the opening, it's a concern.
Yeah. If elected, you'll be working with fellow Democrats here in our delegation in Fall River. Of course, Representative Cal Fiola, Representative Alan Sylvie in Fall River, Senator Rogers, who you mentioned before. How do you feel you'd be able to work with them?
Oh, no problem. Those are hard workers too, and they're out there. I don't think there'd be any problem at all. I've seen all of them. I talked to all of them. Carol's everywhere. I do have to talk to them one-on-one just to get our, make sure we're aligned on all the issues and we can move forward on them. But I think they're an asset to the city. They're working hard too. That's another, I didn't become a Democrat yesterday. I've been a Democrat for a couple of decades. I felt when I ran for public office, people should know where I stand. I was an independent before that, but I've certainly got Democratic values, and that seems to be the way the state goes, and I think we can get a lot done.
This district tends to be, and I'm going to use my air quotes here, tends to be a Westport seat. Senator Rodrigues was there, of course, Representative Schmid from Westport. It has a long history. It's the only town in the district that is, the whole town is in the district. Yeah. But there's 4 of you from Westport running.
Yeah.
How do you view that dynamic in terms of, obviously you've got to get votes from everywhere, but I mean, it tends to be Westport centric.
I could say at first that I think a couple didn't know. I think we've got a couple of different views. Obviously, one is running as a Republican, which is different views. We have some that aren't involved in committees running across the board. It's 3 from Westport. The 4th is from Acushnet.
Yeah, but there's...
You're talking about 4 altogether, counting me?
4 counting you, plus because there's 5 candidates, 4 counting
Gotcha.
you. Right.
Okay. I mean, years ago, I was considering running for this position when Paul ran. Right. And I got together with Paul, we discussed it. I said, all right, Paul, if you're interested too, I'm going to back off because it's crazy to split Westport. We need good representation. I know you're a good worker, and here you go. So he faced off against the challenger. I didn't even attempt to bargain that. If that's what they want to do, God bless them, and let the people decide who should be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, I want to give you the opportunity to speak to the voters of Fall River. So, thanks. Steve, here's your chance to speak to Fall River voters.
Thank you very much. I think we touched base on a lot of the important parts of this, and I want the public to know that it'll be accessible. Work hard for you. It's going to be a full-time job. It's not a hobby to be the state rep. Be very proud to serve the area. Again, I think you have some great people in power, if you will, right now, including your mayor. I got to give him props because every time I call him on an issue, he's there. And I really want to work hard for the area. I hope to have the areas, the streets safer. hopefully we'll get some housing done, work with our schools. I am a facilities director in a school system right now, so you know, I'm very concerned with the facilities in particular, that the kids have a safe environment. And I certainly hope that you'll consider me, Steve Ouellette, on November 5th.
All right, Steve Ouellette, Democrat, running in the 8th Bristol District. Thank you for your time. All the best. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, and thank you for joining us here at FRC Media. Please make a point to vote on Tuesday, November 5th.